Call this regular meeting of the Fayette County APC to order. We'll begin with pledge to the flag. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I may need Adrian.
Okay, we'll have roll call, please.
Darren Price.
Here.
Bill Free.
Present.
Brian is absent for the moment. Dale Munson.
Present.
Gary Naylor.
Present.
Robert Stewart. Brian Robb.
Present.
Bill Mackey. Daryl Drew.
Here.
Bill McDaniel.
Present.
Jeff Westling.
Present.
And Beverly Rude.
Quorum, I believe.
Yep.
Approval of minutes. Do we have any tonight?
I sent them to the guys about 3 o'clock and they,
I was at physical therapy.
All right.
unless Brian comes and brings them.
Okay. Yeah, Bev, what we can do is, let's talk sometime next week so we can get a track on where we are with all the various minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I can help you with getting caught up.
Gotcha.
If you gotta catch up on anything.
I do.
Okay.
I have to apologize. I wasn't prepared for this, so we'll move on to the zoning code updates, the home-based business.
Oh, we don't need that. Oh, yeah, this is from an older one, so.
Okay.
Home-based business, no. Permit software, no. Okay.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because I didn't have a copy in my records. It wasn't sent to the agenda for the last couple of meetings. Okay, so comprehensive plan update, no. Okay, so what we have with the zoning code is that the one thing I gave you everything so far was on the parking. And the items that we have in the parking are there's a comparison with the parking space requirements between Hancock County and then Fayette County. And for most part they are quite a bit more generous for a lot of uses. Okay, so we have those. Okay, then there's and from Hancock County, I have there's on the, after that, has to do with their requirements for the parking spaces. And after that, we have, then there's two things. Then we have from Hancock County, they're stacking spaces for drive-through businesses, something we are sorely lacking and needing. So that's something that can be inserted. Then there's a copy of ours with some of my comments through here. And where I need to review some things I've had to review. And to finish my review of those, and that's where we're at with those. Now the other thing is, since it really wasn't spoken to all the time, but made references to the as far as the reformatting. So we have with sections I completed work on, and this came to a halt for the most part is once I lost Mr. Whitecotton. So my progress on reformatting. So since I've been back in the office, I've been trying to put in time as I can onto the reformatting. So the things I included was to show you where we're at with it and give you an idea where I'm trying to go. Now the first one is the table of contents. And one thing is breaking up the sections the way we do. It means the sections are more amendable. Enough, Gary, you've been around long enough, some of you have been around long enough that the difficulties I've had at times of trying to figure out where to shoehorn something into the current zoning code, because this wasn't section 10, so it wasn't section 1, wasn't section 2, wasn't section 3. Everything was straight page numbers, and that created problems for trying to make changes to the zoning code. So the first part with that is of course, it's just the standard basic provisions. I'm good with those. Now, the next part is, okay, the reformatted draft is, then you get into the part with the residential districts. Now, the first part here is just describing the residential districts. But after that, this is the next section where we get into the district intents, the uses, and the standards. And I think some of you remembered some of my comments in the past about how two ways you can do it is you can do it in this manner, but then also having the land use table, which is the last thing in the stack, is we can reduce an awful lot of paper and makes it for ease of use. I think having this land use table and then breaking up the table into the particular types of uses, such as residential uses, lodging, agricultural, natural resources. So that's why I have the table set up this way. If you take a quick look at the table, you can see why that's so many things can actually will cause a reduction in the actual pages, because there's a lot of redundancy because there's a lot of permitted uses allowed in all of them. There's contingent uses allowed in all of them. There's special exceptions that are allowed in some or more than one particular type of district. So this will put everything into one place. So you can see, is it permitted? Is it not permitted? Or does it require a special exception? So that's the idea with that. So it's a pretty large section when you're looking at that standard zoning districts, the intent and uses, that article with Article 3. And this will, in my opinion, will make it easier to use, and it'll get rid of a lot of redundancy and a lot of extra paper, and I think it'll be easier to use. Kind of way when we went to the matrix with the sign regulations, made things easier for people to use, and that's the idea behind that. So that's where we're at with those, and then of course is the definitions. And then with the definitions is idea is go through with the definitions is I'm trying to get not only alphabetized, but I'm also trying to relate related definitions, such as the agriculture and agriculture-related uses. So that way, you want to know if you can do something question about something in agriculture, this provides the definition. Now, there's still some that probably things need to be added, there's some that could probably be removed, and there's certainly several of them because the language, I have not replaced some things with the old language, which I think most of you that have looked through definitions realize that it's really awkward and it's hard. It's hard to get through and figure out what some of the definitions mean. And the definitions are critical for us because that's what the basis of our interpretation is on the zoning code. And then if we do go to court, this is also what the actual judge will end up looking at, as far as making their legal findings. So what I did provide was if anybody needed to look at some, I did make a couple of copies. I did provide everybody a copy of everything for the parking. So in particular is, you had chances to go through the parking. If there's any questions, anything else that you have with the parking stuff. So like I said, so for example with, I think one thing that simplifies it is, so if you look at this, hours we have now compared to Hancock County, okay, there's more uses are combined into one. Okay, the spaces is, everything is looked at as the gross square feet rather than having to go back and forth between one use or another, looking at gross square feet or net square feet. So it's just an easier way to go. So most things are definitely more generous. So for example, when you look at the ones with the sales room, these other services, these all go elsewhere. And they're pulled under the individual uses we have here, such as the auto-oriented, car wash, clothing services, food service, personal services. They're all classified under one particular use in the Hancock County. So you can see the differences with how much more generous some of these are with the square footage from the Hancock County, which I think is really is more along the lines of what we need to look at and to come to some final determinations on what works. Is I'll need to then, number one, count spaces and then check out how many parking spaces, what percentage of those are used during the peak hours. So for example, is we had the parking variances from the particular $2 generals, and when I've gone by the newest one on Fifth Street, it's even with that variances, I think they still provided probably more parking than they actually needed. A few spaces, not a lot, not like they would have had to. And then the other aspect is with the getting reasonable numbers on the parking spaces, is it reduces paved surfaces, and it will and then for say business owners and the people who own these commercial properties, it will reduce the stormwater runoff that has to be managed by the city, and it will also then reduce their fees, their stormwater fees, since it's based on square footage of impermeable surface. So it's good for the developers. It's also going to be good for Connersville Utilities by doing things that allow percolation of groundwater instead of dumping it into the streets. And because I mean, all of us have seen during high rain periods is that we have so much stormwater is that they get backed up as is. So if we can do anything over time to reduce that problem, that's good. Okay, so that's one. And then of course is having a reasonable amount of parking spaces. That's another aspect that's good for the developers because it's they don't have the additional hard cost of development cost of providing more paving, because that's a significant cost on these different projects. And then there's the other one here with the stacking spaces for the drive-through businesses. I think that's one that we really need to insert. And what I can do with that is I want to look at the stacking spaces from some more ordinances to really get a feel what's out there. But and then we just have then like I said, the last one right here is just the off-street parking with some of my comments. And I've made some changes with things, but it does need more editing and more review on my part. So anybody has any questions, anything else with me, things regarding parking, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Actually, Bill, yeah, there was one point in here in ours where it talked about in residential 25 feet between driveways.
Yeah.
And I know my house is not like that
Yeah.
because I've got driveway here and our neighbors are driveway right here.
Yeah.
And there's maybe 8 to 10 feet in
Yeah,
between.
yeah. All those type of things would actually be legal non-conforming use, or use the common term that people use as grandfathered. So this wouldn't affect those. This would be new developments.
Right.
Now, one thing that they have, we have, and it would also relate to anything that might be done with non-conforming parcels, is there's still a requirement for any and all types of dwelling units, and this reduces just into one. Just one such as with Hancock County, is that whether it's apartments, whether it's a rooming house, boarding house, single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, it still calls for 2 per unit.
Okay.
Yeah. So so of course, since most apartments also have, some of them are 1 bedroom, that also plays into providing a, visitor parking. It's not like the one we have where you got to provide this budget placed on this employees and so on. Trying to get away from that.
Right.
Because the more we can make it simple, but just based on the square footage, that encompasses, the number of employees, that type of thing. And the only other one in particular that would be, I think, beneficial to add that the Hancock County has, but we don't have anything comparable, is the one for, deals with shift employees. And this would be factories and others that have multiple shifts. We really don't have something along those lines. And but, yeah, and I really think it's superior in the ease of use. For example, the hotel motel, it calls for each sleeping unit, motel bed, or bed and breakfast, and that's one space for each sleeping unit. Now, that could be one if, say, board members would think that maybe we need a little bit more than that, because what if it's full? Then you have the employees, so that could be something you would, something like that, rather than saying one for the most employees, because you might have, 2 or 3 employees. You know, most motels are hotels, well, small ones. So if you have that with, so that might be to say, increase it to say maybe it might be 1.25, whatever, to do that. Okay, but yeah, it gets us out of, there's sometimes you need formulas, other times where you really want to get rid of formulas. I think in the park and get rid of the one for this, one for that, one for this, one for that, within determining your numbers, just using an overall number, to me, is more efficient. Okay.
Bill, what does doctor's office and dentist offices fall under?
Okay, what it would fall under with these is that those would fall with the Hancock County, that would fall under small businesses. So, and so if we had that, based on the type of business, say what Mr. White is here for with the BZA, this is what would have covered that instead of, for them with their parking. So, but, yeah, so that's where that would have ended up coming in. Because the clinic is still just depending upon the square footage, which you would need to find. It's either, depending upon what they do, small, you have to treat it like a small business, medium business, or a large business. Because you notice because the small business and the medium business are 1 for 300 gross square feet. The big business, which is referring to big box, is the 1 for 400 square feet. And one reason for that also is the amount of area that's also used for the stock room, for stock. And then it goes back to the history of, you probably wonder why does Walmart have so many, why do they have to get so many parking spaces? They're never full. It goes back to the language which was in the zoning code was, number one, it was pre-Black Friday, when it is based on the one day of the year, the biggest day of parking. It's before they did the Black Fridays. The biggest day of shopping, biggest demand was Christmas Eve. So that's where they came up with that particular standard. And now with the increasing online sales, is that some of you probably noticed is that Black Friday, still a big deal to some people, but it isn't as big of a deal because so much is done online. So I think that that takes into consideration a lot of the things that are being done online.
Yeah, and so according to ours, our ordinance is from 1979.
1993, but the model ordinance is even older than that. And some of the sections are, I may mention in the past, such as when we were talking about home-based business. I mean, who knows what millinery is, much less does millinery.
Right.
So, yeah, so I think that's, we're slowly getting there with a reasonable approach. So, of course, there's some things as we go through, we are going to need to add some content with some of these sections. But there's a lot of which we'll still be able to use. Maybe modernize the language, find some of these sections that are outdated because they're no longer, they've been stripped from the Indiana codes. You'd have to make references to the new code section. And then one thing that's frequently done is you see in some zoning codes will be that, okay, if you can have language, in accordance with this part of the Indiana code or successor codes. So that's sort of covering you. So anytime the way the legislature will change things, theoretically you're covered. So, but now I know there's still a lot to do, but I thought it was good to show that where I was at, and of course with some of these changes. So what we had right there is still a pretty big chunk. And then I think one thing I did is because I think some of you remember the, okay, I had a lot of the definitions initially in with the table. So those are just to tell people what define the uses, they're looking at the table. But those, I removed those and then they've all gone into the definition section. So once again, just eliminating some of the redundancy. So any other questions about this, the parking?
Bill, I have one.
Yeah, sure.
The general conversation last month that we had on parking,
Yeah.
which was pretty lengthy, could all of this language that you're talking about tonight be created as a guideline outside of the ordinance? And could our commercial properties all go anything but residential? Could that all go before the review committee
Well,
each?
Yeah, the what?
And let those businesses tell us how much parking they want, they need.
Have you ever done that in your experience? Okay,
Because they're gonna tell you as little as they possibly can.
yeah. Rather than the realistic number, yeah. Okay. So you probably agree that just looking like ours.
Why is it that every business that comes to Connersville asks for a variance and we grant them variances for less parking? Because their study shows that they only need this much parking.
Right. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
Tippecanoe County is probably one of the biggest culprits of stealing asphalt. Theirs is ridiculous. And they don't grant many exceptions at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they've become more reasonable and have reduced the numbers. I mean, like you were talking, a shopping center that has 5 times what they need on a normal basis is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hospital in Lafayette before they tore it down that if they touched one part of the building, we were gonna have to add 400 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Which was ridiculous.
I've seen ordinances like that.
And I guess what I'm
as long as you have a
saying,
common sense number,
But
you're fine.
yeah, because I know when you're going through this, I sent you the parking standards,
Right.
which is
If we were 3 per doctor and
yeah, it's a ridiculous way to do it.
Tippecanoe County is the same way. We've got a chart we have to go through and
Yeah.
it says you get this much per square foot for an office, this much per square
Yes.
foot for, and you follow it and you find it. Like I say, when they first came out with it, they were a little off base, but they have curtailed it and, the city has in their urban area a 40% reduction clause.
Okay. Yeah, Jim, could you take a look at that and from your perspective, because you're being honest about other businesses, what they will do. And so.
Just on the spot.
Oh, no. I mean, if you don't want to render opinion, don't render an opinion. Because, you see, there's the Fayette County, then there's the one with the Hancock County. And I think there's a lot of ones that make more sense. than
And this is
Hancock
what
County. Yeah, this
what we
is,
see is per square foot.
exactly, rather than the formula.
And if you had a theater, it's per seat in a theater.
Yeah,
We have Purdue University.
yeah.
So when you're talking dwelling units, if you did 2 spaces per dwelling unit, it's a 4-bedroom house, you gotta have 4 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Because
And,
each kid's gonna have a car.
yeah.
And so,
And,
that's
yeah.
added in.
Yeah.
And this is quite,
Not that you never have.
yeah, churches, 1 per 3 seats, I've seen 1 per 3 to 1 per 6, but
Yeah.
it's reasonable as I think that that's.
More, yeah. And,
but why not, I guess what I'm saying is, why not let the review committee use this and let the businesses come to the review committee with their plan of what parking they need, and then the review committee can look it over and say, you know what, I'm not sure that meets the needs of your business. Or, here in Connersville, I think that's way too much blacktop.
And you know, my hometown, I'm actually from Monticello, and theirs is a lot less than Tippecanoe counties, because they're not Tippecanoe County.
Yeah.
We don't have that much draw from
Right.
others. So yeah, what, you can take that though and tailor it to what you do see.
I mean, and
Through
let the
your
review
businesses.
committee do that rather
Right.
than create concrete language in the ordinance. Let the review committee go create that concrete,
But you
each
do need,
individual.
you do need guidelines, so when I come in with my design, I know I'm gonna be within your guidelines. Then if I wanna argue down from that, that's my choice and my gamble.
Yeah.
But I at least know what I have to provide.
But
As a
does it
designer, that's
actually have
important
to be written in the ordinance, Jeff, or can that be a guideline?
I see what you're saying, but we have.
An SOP.
I see what you're saying, but I have two problems with this. One is we're going to create another committee that we're going to have a hard time getting people to show up for and meet and do all those things. And two, I think there's got to be a base. I think there's got to be a baseline. Now, what I think you're saying is let's make the baseline much easier to meet.
Yeah.
Right, which I think.
Much
which
less language.
I think is what the goal here has been from the beginning, because right now, with the Dollar General guys, you know, we're asking for twice as many spaces
Or more.
as
Yeah.
they think they need, or, you know, so why are we wasting area and asphalt to, you know?
And not only that, wasting their time to have to go through variances to get less parking space and meetings and oh, well, sorry, we don't have a quorum this month. You're gonna have to wait till next month before you can come.
Right, but
before us
I think
and-
if we're giving them a, you know, if right now the ordinance is here and we're giving them a base of down here, and like he said, if they want to argue from that point, then that should be on them to come and talk to us.
Well, that's where it comes in, is where, okay, I really need to, okay, get the number of parking spaces, then verify, okay, during the peak hours. You have to say, particularly say, okay, the Dollar General, what's the peak hours? Well, we're looking at the medical clinics, or we could use an example, say you'd look at the urgent care, which is really, it's a medical clinic. That, look at those numbers, and I mean, urgent care would be kind of difficult to say anything about peak hours, because people do stupid stuff at all hours of the day. So, people have accidents, people fall off ladders, you know, all times of the day. And but you know, some of these other uses, I mean, if we look at them, and the other one is that, so it could be then it's the, so then most of the churches we have anyway also have access to on-street parking also. I think one of the things also is that so what are some of the things out there as we do parking? Say
I like your idea, Gary. I think that we should create a base, but maybe that base needs to be a lot easier to meet.
yeah. So which is where
You know what I mean? Just like this
Yeah.
is an absolute minimum, and quite honestly, if you want to go below this, then we really need to be explained why, because the minimum is
Yes,
so low.
yeah.
Like one of my favorites is we have the amount of parking spaces for a drive-in establishment.
Yeah.
So drive-in restaurant, we could.
Well,
understand that
that's the thing. So yeah, because of course, at the time with this, there's a lot of places like Kunkel's, because that's what all of us think is a drive. So really a McDonald's is I think with the fast food restaurants also need to take into consideration, because how many seats are actually used on the inside?
So you created this very nice
Yeah.
chart. I think what the members could do is maybe look at them and say, hey, we take this out, we don't need this in here, or or instead of one for each 125 square feet, let's just do one for every 400 square feet, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Just to create a base.
And just look across and then compare them with the stuff, with the ones from Hancock County. I think that's the most useful one.
And
And
then we
provided
can
the
have-
other things for everybody, that you have a baseline.
And then we could have a committee that is well versed on this, that meets with them if they want a variance from that, Gary. And then that committee would come to us and say, we approve or don't approve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because because it would take adoption within the zoning ordinance. But there's, there's staff review, but there's also a system for doing reviews and approvals from from a committee and approve, to not make people go through some of these. So, but that's something that have to be adopted in the zoning code. And, but that's something else is, so one of the things that I didn't include with this, this stack of other stuff from the, within the zoning code, is that because one thing that we have is that we started some work on the actual, having a formal review process. And it's to have something similar to the way that Connersview Utilities functions for stormwater and then erosion control. And one thing that you would have with that is then so for example with Connersville Utilities, well, you could have someone actually who would review things in the projects. You either do it, if you do it in-house, or if someone's going to really review everything, and the review's done by Wessler, and the person who needs a review, then they pay Wessler, because it shouldn't come out of the city of Connersville's pocket, because when you're doing a stormwater review, it can be pretty expensive. That, for example, is just like with Mr. White, is with the stormwater, is that so during the process so there's a lot of things that until, for example, they would get a special exception. Okay, a lot of the detailed work such as the stormwater, the final site design, drainage, that doesn't really occur, and then you actually then start doing the building design. That doesn't happen until after you get this, because that's all expensive stuff. So the design review process, or if and the other thing with having a design review process is having people here locally with it that's conversed in the various things you need to look at. But those are two options to go down the road. That's great to look at. And then it's the practicality of, and also the practicality of either option.
Bill, why did you pick Hancock County to compare?
Well, the way I started with that is I did a search for, parking standards state of Indiana. And number one with Hancock County, one, it's close. I also know the planner very well, and he's going to put a lot into it. It's also I saw some, I didn't see many that were more generous than that as I was looking. I saw others that were closer in line with what we have. So then then there's a couple of jurisdictions, I'm trying to think offhand, where they've gotten rid of parking requirements. And I don't think the planners haven't been happy with the result, because it turns into a free-for-all. So.
Okay. Well, why don't we spend a little more time with that Hancock comparison and
But in the meantime, with parking, I can work on reviewing the rest of the parking section.
Yeah, and this whole comparison thing was great, Bill. I appreciate that.
Okay.
if anybody has suggestions, comparing, with the Hancock's comparison, if you want to reduce or increase, or just make some notes for next month and on that table, and we'll, or send them directly to Bill, or
You can send those to me. What I can do is that's right, I sent those as a PDF, or did I send those as a Word document?
PDF.
Okay, what I can do is I can send these things in the park, and I can send those to everybody as a Word document. So that way it'd be easier to insert comments. And so if you do send me any comments, please CC everybody else that's on the Plan Commission.
All right. Anything else on that parking tonight? Bill, last month we discussed the lot size
Yeah,
and we come up with some language. Did Brian get that to you?
he got me the box, but I didn't pull that out of the mess,
Okay, all
the
right.
box.
All right. If, I think I forget, Dave, do you remember, we stated we wanted to take that to public hearing
June.
May or June, I believe, so
Okay, and, okay,
so we can
okay,
get that ball
okay,
rolling.
yeah, so what was the gist then with it, the parking? I mean, the
The
non-conforming.
lot sizes was basically, if I remember right, our language was, as long as they met the setbacks and the minimum square footage of the home, they could build on any existing non-conforming lot size.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a split
Yeah,
and do a new one, but it had to be an existing
yeah, okay, yeah, that
non-conforming.
would
lot.
make it a lot simpler than the two approaches I was looking at. Because you either use the formula, and then I think also include since we, some comments about stormwater, but also the maximum lot coverage also.
But we
Yeah,
just felt that was the easiest and the simplest way to get those lots back into
Circulation.
Okay.
permitted lots for building.
okay, all right, so so,
And that would still prevent the tiny homes from popping up into those lots because they still have to meet our current minimum
yeah,
square footage of a home.
so, minimum lots, but not, okay, minimum lot size. As long as dwelling, okay, meets, okay, minimum size, okay, minimum setbacks, and the, maximum lot coverage, okay. All right.
Water and sewer.
What's that?
Water and sewer. And I kept coming up with.
Oh, yeah, because they have to have public water and sewer. Yeah,
But we didn't want the capabilities of subdividing lots and making new lots that don't conform. It's the existing
yeah,
non-conforming lots.
yeah. Just emphasize may not create a non-conforming lot. And this is one time that having a redundancy would be good. May not reduce.
But Jeff felt that still needed to go through a public hearing and an ordinance
Yeah,
and add it to the ordinance.
okay. All right.
Didn't you, Jeff? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I do.
Okay.
What are we gonna do on county subdivisions?
Okay, well, the county, okay.
I mean,
Well,
you're wanting this, I just wanna make sure it's clear, you're wanting this to just impact city jurisdiction, not
Yeah.
county?
yeah, because the only places they would have some substandard lots as far as size would be, the problem would be in places like Bentonville, Alquina, well, some of the others that have
Well,
no,
I'm talking about future subdivisions.
future subdivisions, okay. Well,
You see what I'm saying? You have to start creating smaller lots in the county, is that what you want?
no, I don't think, you wouldn't want to do that.
I think that was the reason we wanted the language. It was the existing non-conforming lots
Okay.
here in the city.
Yeah, 'cause
We
it
don't
ain't-
want you to be able
Yeah,
to,
wouldn't anything new
wouldn't create
be
any new
created
sub,
at the
or
standard?
new sub partials or anything like that. You couldn't come in
Can't split it and do it, yeah. Well, because we already have a provision in there, but no, you cannot create a substandard parcel. I mean, a non-conforming parcel.
Okay.
And the main one I've had problems with that is, and it goes back to the date of when the current zoning code was adopted in 1993. So anything else that was including the, landlocked parcels. So the main one I've had is just a few times someone went ahead and they split something off. It's been after 1993, and they've had they created a landlocked parcel. That's like, no, it's created after 1993, and I do not have to issue a permit, number one, because you're actually required to have legal road frontage. Now, some of these places that have, going back to, you might have a part, something back there, but you actually have a legal easement to get back to it. That's a different story, but you gotta have the legal easement.
Jeff, do you want this to state this? Our purpose behind this is the
It's saying
city,
it's only impacts
it's city, Non-conform-
lots inside the city jurisdiction that are non-conforming,
currently
currently non-conforming.
as of the such and such date. Yeah.
Currently non-conforming lots within,
That was our
within the corporate
Jeff, wasn't
boundaries.
it, last month?
Yes.
That was the idea.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Does it matter if the city was to annex?
Well, if the city annexed, then they would come within.
Yeah, because it probably wouldn't be much of an issue most places.
If the city annexed
subdivisions.
county lots, they're gonna be bigger lots.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be.
Yeah, because the only one that might be smaller in size with any subdivision is that are smaller, is probably the smallest county lots. It might be, would be up there in, Gorton Estates. So I think most of those meet the minimum anyway, but that's probably the one that's closest to the minimum lot sizes. And I think those anywhere are one, which is, and they have water, they have sewer, and those are, the minimums of 6,000 and 7,000 square feet, and they exceed those.
I think
But-
there's some in my neighborhood, that's why I was asking.
Well, the thing of it is, if we create it as of this date, then if the city annexes future lots and then they're gonna have to come before BZA to get a variance because they weren't city non-conforming lots prior to this date.
Prior to,
Yeah.
Right, Jeff? Wouldn't that be, as long as you put that date in there,
Sure.
then if city annexes any future lots that are non-conforming, they wouldn't fall under that jurisdiction because they wasn't city lots.
Yeah, it's,
so would they be grandfathered in? Or would they
No,
have
they'd
to
have to
come before the board and ask for
for
a variance?
Yeah.
yeah, and it's the, well.
Or the city could
this
come to
is-
us and modify the date.
Yeah, yeah, and this is where we get into the whole thing with the fact that it's 1993, but it's a model ordinance is probably 10 or 20 years old by the
Yeah.
time this was adopted.
Okay. I think that was the only two subjects that we really discussed last month was the non-conforming lots and the parking.
Yeah. And,
Um,
the other things with that other section, reformatting, I wanted to get that out in front of everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Director's report?
Well,
Anything?
sitting in the printer.
Okay.
But well, I was concerned about making sure I got this stuff and it's in the printer tray. So what
Okay.
I'll do is I'll have one separate and then I can just add the other, and whether it just be adding to the other or because at some point is when I'm able to go back in the field, then I'll have the numbers with the inspections and with Adrian's performed. And we got it where it's working out pretty smooth.
Okay, all right.
And so,
And Adrian's still
Yep.
doing inspections, and how long,
well,
right now,
well, the
what's the tentative?
contract was open-ended.
Open-ended? Okay.
Because ideally it was 3 months, but with the complications I had because of the 2 previous knee surgeries, it might take me a little longer to get back into the field.
Okay.
Because, so it could be a little longer, and because right now it's still Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays because Adrian's, he has a project, he's back to working as a consulting engineer.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's working out really good. And I really haven't had problem with very many people about this.
Any other questions for Bill? I'll entertain a motion.
to adjourn.
Motion made by Darrell,
Second.
second. All in favor of the motion for adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Okay, I call the, May.
May!
April.
Why did it say May on there?
No.
Oh, thank God.
It probably wouldn't shock me. I apologize. It's the April BZA meeting to order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call?
Carrie?
Yes.
Here, I still got you down as Steele. Bill Crawford? He's absent. Jeff Fisher?
Here.
Darren Price?
Here.
Bill Free?
Present.
Bill McDaniel?
Present.
Jeff Westling?
Present.
And Beverly Rude.
Okay, now, I printed 2 extra copies. If anybody needs that, wants to have one of these in front of them.
Okay, well, before we do that, can we,
Oops, my
have
apologies.
we introduced Bill? I've
Yeah.
missed a few meetings, so I
Yeah, we
apologize.
did introduce Bill.
Okay, so, like to introduce Bill Free to the BZA board. Thank you for joining us. And since I missed a few meetings, I wanted to make sure that hadn't already happened.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
I want to see, make sure you're okay.
Yeah, okay.
Good,
All
good,
right,
good.
so, how about, approval of minutes? None?
Yeah, it was sent after I went to physical therapy.
Okay, all right, no problem. All right, so now we'll go on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. We're going to hear from petitioner James White, agent for Hutton. Petition request is the petition request action is for a special exception number 13 for a clinic.
This is a newer version than what you had probably from before.
Okay. Yeah, they'll be a little easier to read than the one I printed on 8.5 by 11.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I got a number of copies. And the last one off. There we go.
Okay, so when you get started, will you please say your name and address for the record?
My name is Jim White. I'm with Vestron Associates, Land Surveying and Engineering. We're located at 309 Columbia Street, Suite 101 in Lafayette, Indiana, 47901. We're here this evening to ask for a special exception in a general business area for a medical building. I believe it's item 13 in your ordinance. This site plan that I just handed out, the owner has decided to move the building forward, the pond to the back, and the parking to the back of the building. Our driveway is still away from one, so there shouldn't be any trouble coming in and out of one. Your last meeting, I know we talked about parking, I got involved a little bit. We are probably oversized just by the nature of the business, because an urgent care isn't set up like a doctor's office. So your doctor's office numbers probably were a little small for what we need. So we've got more parking, so we should be good there.
Yeah. And I did count using the aerial photography of the urgent care on the other clinic, urgent care clinic on Indiana 1 on 44, and they had 17 spaces.
So, our drainage will be a percolation system because the soils out there will handle that. Business hours, if I remember correctly, are 8 to 8.
Correct.
Or 8 to 8. We will have a monument sign out on 1, directing people. I think we're a good fit for your community. We're obviously a need. If anybody's trying to make a doctor's appointment with your own personal physician, sometimes you're 2-3 weeks before you can get in. Where urgent cares are now taking that spot for the quick fix. If there's any questions, or
How many days a week?
7. I knew that one.
That's why I pay you the big bucks. Okay, if there's nothing else,
I have nothing else to add. I don't believe, I think we meet everything.
Okay, and from my perspective as a planner, and also background planner and landscape architect, that's a superior location. Because it looks better to have it toward the front of close to the road. It's the parking is not the dominant feature. That I just got to think about that. So the parking is not the dominant feature, and with the parking there pushing that up that way, it should make for a better stormwater management solution on the parcel as far as channeling it and grading it.
Is there enough area for larger vehicles such as equipment trucks and?
We have a space, we have a dumpster there to the side, which would be able to pull in and then back into the parking area on the south and return out to the road.
the drop off is 24 feet, so there's plenty of room. Okay, if there's nothing else from the board, I'll have you,
Step aside.
okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Hello, Brian Metz, Metz QUOZV LLC. First thing I want to say is I'm a lot happier to have this than a friggin' gas station. So this is far more superior, and the thing about this is going to be a huge impact for the assisted living and complement it with manufacturing up the street. You got urgent care right there, and complement a hell of a lot of doctors. Because I'll tell you what, my industry, a lot of people call a doctor, and then unless it's an emergency and you're about half dying, it's hard to get an appointment in time. Plus, like my trainer that trains my horses, he'll call his doctor, and then he'll go in and he won't give him anything that he needs. And he's all congested and everything else. He'll go to urgent care now, because then at least he can get what he needs to clean himself up. I mean, you get sick, half these doctors don't even want to give you nothing to take care of you, you know? So I think this isn't, it's going to complement Walmart, because these, people can get prescriptions if they need it, I mean, it's going to be a lot for the community. They have an urgent care close by. But I think it's a hell of a lot better. I mean, I like the urgent care or another business like on the other side. I don't really want to have a gas station. To me, I just do not like them in the front now. But, and this is something I think really complement the community.
Well, I think it could set the tone with, between that and the assisted living, could set the tone for the future with
Yeah, I mean,
how
you
you will
get
develop.
elderly and they need something, and, you go to emergency room. I took my wife one time and she fell off a ladder trying to clean the gutters on the back porch, fell on her head. And went there, and I was in that emergency from like 7 o'clock till 2 in the freaking morning. 2 in the morning. So she goes back to her doctor, for back doctor. She has had back surgery like a year before that. And he goes, "Did you do something to your neck?" And she goes, "Yeah, I fell off the roof, but I had an x-ray." And they did the x-ray. Here it was fractured, cracked it, but it healed. He said, "You know, you cracked your vertebrae in your neck." But I mean, I was there from 4 to like, or 8 to 2 in the morning. And the hell, she'd went into an urgent care or something. At least she would have got something, and they would have said, "Hey, go to, somewhere," because I just don't like hospitals. Unless I gotta go in there for something that I really need, like Christ Hospital for my heart or something like that.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay. Any discussion among the board? Okay, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made to approve and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Carrie,
Yes.
Jeff Fisher,
Yes.
Darren Price,
Yeah.
Bill Free.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now, who made the motion, who seconded?
Darren made it
Darren Price, okay.
and Bill seconded.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good,
special
thank you.
exceptions approved. Talk to,
And you have the signature page, Bev does.
Yep, right.
all right. Just come in and see Bill whenever you're getting ready to get started to finish up everything, getting your, this is the use approval, and so you'll need your improvement location permit through Bill when you're ready to start construction.
And as we talked about in the past is, then, once you got everything cleared with the Connersville utilities, also with your stormwater plan, beautiful, good to go.
Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Okay, director's report? No?
I left it on the computer. I mean, left it on the printer.
All right,
Worried about all
so
this other stuff.
do I have a movement to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Do it.
I'll second.
All right, motion made and seconded to adjourn. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Adjourn.
Great, thank you.